Tonight's flight will be aimed at flying a short route from Rand Airport, where we are now on runway 29, all the way to the first point to the ILS landing at Lansera Airport. The first point is called Delta 247 Tango, and if we look at our flight plan, that is Delta 247 Tango. So a direct flight from Rand to Lansera, and we'll be doing an ILS landing on runway 07 at Lansera Airport. The flaps one notch down. I'm choosing my takeoff view. Release brakes and open throttle for takeoff. Coming up for 60 knots, rotate. Always in the Cessna and very wary of the amount of upward rotation, because the speed can bleed off very, very easily. Flaps up, nose will drop slightly, counter that with a slight upward movement. And we can then now go over to Autopilot. Because I'm on GPS, I have to press nav twice. It'll show nav and GNSS being GPS, and my vertical speed I will click and I will push it to +5, meaning that we'll be climbing at 500 feet per minute. The view I'm on now I call my flying view, so that I more or less have all my instruments and everything in front of me, but I do like flying on obviously the next view. Then I can see my attitude better and I can see more outside the aircraft and be alert of what is going on around me. Back to the flying view. I would just like to get my fuel flow correct, the richness of my input. I'm taking the red lever down, and I would like to get the point, optimum point. Look at the EGT dropping again, and it looks like we are probably going to get about 8 gallons per hour, which to me is a very good fuel flow, fuel consumption. Obviously you could see all the other instruments were in the green arcs. All was fine. With the aircraft stable, keeping direction well, being on track, climbing at a steady 500 feet per minute, you can just work out our point of descent from 9,000 feet to 8,000 feet at point Delta 247 Tango when entering the ILS path. I planned to be at 8,000 feet, exactly overhead Delta 247 Tango, obviously cruising at 9,000 feet, and then I would like to descend at 500 feet per minute. As soon as we reach 9,000 feet, we will come back to this vertical navigation calculator. When flying at night, despite the fact that one has, like tonight, a fairly good horizon, it is always good to have a look and keep a check on your speed, your attitude indicator, and your height indicator. Obviously, the directional gyro and direction must be watched. We keep watching that we're on track. We can also go back to the normal flight plan and just assure that the aircraft is following the track, which in this case is the magenta line. We're at 8,000 feet now, and we are going to keep a watch on the height so that we can go down to the autopilot and press the Alt key so that the altitude of 9,000 feet can be kept. Just a quick check on our own map. There we're flying, and we will be flying to Lanseria. There we are. Click on the runway, look at the details. Our QNH is 1019, and that is important to have an accurate QNH reading for our destination airfield in order to land on the runway at the correct height. Also, just a short double check, we see here that we will have the wind coming from that northeast direction, so landing on runway 07 we will land with a headwind. I've just caught 9,000 feet in time. We can descend that little bit to bring it exactly to 9,000 feet. I just want to double check before I do that my QNH is in fact 1019. Good, you could see the vast difference that the few millibars it was out made a difference to the height. So we can rectify that now by descending a few hundred feet. While descending, double check that the speed is kept below the yellow mark in the green arc, and with the QNH correct, pressing the Alt button now, we are exactly at 9,000 feet, and the vertical speed indicator will move up and down to get that needle on the mark where you press the Alt button. If we look at the VNav, calculator, will see that we have to start descending in 4 minutes time at 500 feet a minute to be at that point at the correct height. Correct height is indicated on the Jefferson map. For Lanceria, ILS Zulu runway 07. There we can be at 8,000 feet at that point, and then we will remain at 8,000 feet before the ILS will automatically, if all the settings are in order, start descending at the second point. So there we can see from that first point, initial point on the ILS, to the next point will be 8,000 feet, and then a descent will start gradually down to the runway. Probably a bit of high cloud above us, giving that spurts of rain that we just saw now. In the autopilot mode, we are flying in the GPS mode at the moment. There will be the VLOC 1 frequency 110.7, which is as indicated there, 110.7, and the runway direction, or the runway glide path direction in line with the runway is 067. Important is that the VOR, which will assist with the ILS landing, the VOR's button must set the direction to 067, which is set at. The directional gyro must be set at 067. Then, once all the settings been done on the autopilot, it'll be important we have to start descending. Interrupt myself for a moment, and there we're going down at 500 feet per minute, still above the 465 feet per minute they're recommending, but let's leave that at that. We'll come back to that now. The S-Tech autopilot in the Cessna 172 SP Skyhawk does not have an autopilot button, but if we press heading, it automatically goes into the autopilot mode, and the same with nav. Whether you press nav once in the normal nav mode or nav twice like we did for the GPS flight, it will give you this GNSS indication. Then, after having pressed one of those two buttons, and you press the approach button, it'll be in autopilot mode. You can press the reverse button and reverse what you are flying at the moment, the route. Then you've got an altimeter that you can set for keeping altitude, or in the case when we get down to 8,000 feet now, to keep 8,000 feet exactly. The aircraft is starting to turn. We are coming down to 8,000 feet. As soon as we're at 8,000 feet, I'm going to press the Alt button, but I'm going to press it twice, because first my approach button, then my Alt button to indicate to me that we are actually going to look for a glide slope to be given to us by the 110.7, and the CDI can't be in GPS mode anymore now. The CDI button must be pressed and it must go over to the wheel lock button, which will now activate the direction of flight as well as the height we're at. At the moment we're at 8,000 feet and will only start descending at the second point as I have indicated. Recap: nav has been pressed once only because we're not in GPS mode. Then we activated approach, and then we activated Alt, and we saw Alt and Golf Sierra glide slope there. Now that Alt has disappeared, it means that the GPS has actually been activated properly to give us both proper direction and proper height. We will see this height meter coming down slowly as we cross that second point, and we will also see that the vertical speed will start going into the negative, descending. Look at that needle coming down slowly. Look at the vertical speed indicator descending, indicating a descent. We are on nav, not on GPS. We're in the wheel lock mode. And all our settings for autopilot is correct. Nav, approach, and Alt has disappeared, meaning that it will not be keeping 8,000 feet anymore. It will start descending on the glide slope. We can now start putting down flaps. After we've reached our speed to put down flaps, at 110 knots we can put down 1 notch. Then at 90 put down another notch. But look at the speed, leading off fast. So I'm going to increase my throttle. To keep my speed at about 70. And I'm now going to increase my flaps to full flaps down, and just double check, yes, full flaps down. Back to the flying view, and there we have Lansera Airport ahead of us. The VNAV calculator has done its job. We can get rid of that. We are now, in terms of our flight plan, We are now going past that point towards the airfield, so we are on our finals. If we'd like to check that we are actually on the glide slope, that needle has now dropped to exactly there, indicating we are on the glide slope. We can just go to our own internal map again and just click on the approach and see, yes, our aircraft is in fact on the glide slope, and we are approximately 8 nautical miles away from the airfield. We can see the airfield, therefore we can now remove the map to give us optimum view of the area around the airfield. The speed is at 70 knots, which means full flap, and then we must just keep our throttle setting to maintain 70 knots. I'm just going to move my view slightly down to be able to see this button. It appears to me that we are right of the runway. So what I am going to do is I'm going to steer the aircraft slightly left on the heading bug so that I can come in line. This indicator also indicates to me that I am slightly right of track and I should fly to the left in order to bring that into the 0 line position. Regarding our glide slope, we are doing
attention all
just
aircraft,
fine.
QNH 1020.
We can just send our QNH to 1020. Back to the flying view, and by the way, I'm now going to increase the richness of the gas. So this VOR is doing its job 100%. The one below it, you can see, has also been set to 110.7 and only has one direction, not your glide slope as well, also indicating that we on track. That one indicating we on track better now than just now. There might be a few, might have to slightly go right, but we'll watch that on the descent. So this is the final part of a night flight on runway 07 at Lanseria Airport for an ILS approach with a Cessna 172 SP Skyhawk, and we trust that the landing will be as good as the flight has been. That was the landing, and all we have to do now is clear the runway at these green lights ahead to the left. That then the end of the flight, a night flight from Rand Airport to Lanseria on a ILS approach runway 07. Trust you found it informative, and see you soon.